18 on our list is Congo, the other one, the Republic of the Congo, or Congo-Brazzaville. Because of its smaller size and less colorful history, it tends to be overlooked in favor of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Let's give this Congo some love. Geography. Congo-Brazzaville looks a bit like the letter J. The central Bateke Plateau separates the Congo Basin in the northeast from the valleys and hills of the southwest. Extensional forces have created a series of high horsts and low grabens towards the coast, namely the Nyari Valley, the Mayombe Mountains, and the coastal plain. The river that flows through these is called the Nyari upstream of the gorges and Kwilu down. The equator passes through the northern half of the country, meaning there is a tropical equatorial climate, wet all year round. The south, however, is seasonal, wet October to April. Because of this climatic dichotomy, the northeast is covered by part of the Great Congo rainforest and swamp, extending from the Atlantic into the dark interior of the continent. Congo has a great diversity of plants and animals calling it home, especially our closest cousins, chimpanzees and gorillas, found few places else. It's estimated over 100,000 gorillas live in the swamp forests of the interior, protected from the predations of man. The southwest, meanwhile, is less forested mosaic, densely wooded riverbanks separated by savanna. This offers habitat for all sorts of beasts: elephants, monkeys, buffalo, and leopards. Pygmies. I feel like Congo Kinshasa stole a lot of Congo-Brazzaville's thunder, because they do have a lot of similarities, like their first people, the Pygmies. The Pygmies are the diminutive ancient lineage of man that found themselves at home in the rainforest. Their short stature has been explained as an adaptation to more localized food sources or vitamin D deficiencies in the dense forest. Either way, they learned the ways of the jungle, dwelling here anywhere between 60 to 100,000 years. Bantu. The Bantu emerged as a people probably sometime around 4,000 years ago in what is now southern Cameroon. Over the centuries, they steadily advanced southeast, slashing and burning the forest to make way for farms and villages. Far more numerous, the Bantu overran the Pygmies, enslaving them as war captives, or otherwise the Pygmies fled deeper into the jungle, becoming the little wild men of the forest. Enclaves of their survival dot the lands west of the Congo River, but the most significant is in the sparsely inhabited swamp jungle in the Congo Basin, where the Pygmies can live in peace, the land too wild for the Bantu's liking. The Pygmies of Central Africa are not one people. Those here in Congo are the Mbenga. By about 1500 BC, the Bantu reach the Congo River, and by the first millennium, they've occupied the basin. The Ubangians to the north don't extend very far into what is now Congo, remaining in the savannas north. But a group of Mbenga adopt one of their languages, becoming the Baka. Their original language becomes lost, save for the many Baka words that are clearly not Ubangian. The rest of the Mbenga adopt nearby Bantu languages. These are the Bongo, concentrated in modern-day Gabon. Congo doesn't have nearly the diversity of Congo, but is no slouch itself. By the first millennium, the Bantu groups have solidified into their own geographical zones. Along the coastal lowlands and the lower Congo River itself, the western Congo Bantu form, while in the Bateke Plateau, Nyari Valley, and the nearby Chaillu Massif, the Plateau Bantu make their home. Northwards, before the impassable swamps, and along the narrow strip of the Congo and Ubangi rivers, are the North Congo Bantu. By the mid-first millennium, the languages these people speak become ever more distinct. The Western Congo Bantu become the proper Congo people. The Plateau Bantu split into the Teke Mbete in the highlands, the Kele Tsogo in the valley of the Ugoye River, and the Sira along the Mayombe Mountains north of the Kwilu. The North Congo Bantu along the Great River become the Bangi Mongo, those along the Ubangi the Ngiri, and those west of both the Mboshi. Fast forward to 1000 AD, and the Bantu of Congo resemble more their final forms. The Bangi Mongo along the Congo Ubangi split into the upper Lusengo and the lower Bangi. The Mboshi become the Mboshi proper south of the Lima River, the Koyo north, the Akwa northwest, and the Likwala northeast. The Kele Tsogo split up, those of the upper Ogowe the Kele. The Sira along the Nyanga River become the Puno, those along the coast the Lumbu, and the Teke Mbete break into Teke of the Bateke Plateau and the Nzebi of the Chaillu Massif. The Mbete are in Gabon. Meanwhile, many of the Blaga pygmies adopt the Ngiri language, becoming the Aka of the swamps, while the Bongo pygmies adopt Teke Mbete languages. There's some stuff going on in the northwest, but it's so empty, we'll save that for a later episode. Kingdoms of Loango, Kokongo, and Anziku. The Congo people have a rich history. Already by the 1st century, there's evidence of densely populated settlements. By the Middle Ages, several confederations had formed. The one north of the Congo River was known as Vungu, after its dominant member. Vungu evolved into the Kingdom of Congo over the 14th and 15th centuries, centered in what is now Angola. The other confederates became the kingdoms of Ungoyo and Kokongo, vassals but distinct from the Big Congo. By 1450, Congo had built an empire stretching along the coast of west-central Africa, from Gabon to Angola. The northern Congo, around the Kwilu River, formed the vassal kingdom of Loango. Meanwhile, the Teke responded to the expansion of Congo by forming their own realm to resist Congolese invasion. The Teke kingdom is known as Anziku, referring to its people running to the defense of their home, joined by a group of Nzebi, thereafter known as the Western Teke. They frustrate any efforts the Congolese have in expanding into the Congo Basin. These kingdoms do their part along the Copper Road, mining the valuable metal for trade in Congo and beyond. Of the 3 Congolese kingdoms north of the river, Loango was the dominant. With the coming of the Portuguese in the 16th century, efforts began to convert all of Congo to Christianity. The North realms were able to break away from their overlord and escape the chaos and war that dominated the early colonial history of Angola. Instead, they, especially Loango, offered their services acquiring and selling people as slaves to buyers such as the English and Dutch, who otherwise would have had to pay higher rates to the Portuguese, who controlled the slave trade out of Undongo. Loangolese, called the Vili, had a reputation as an entrepreneurial people. Their merchants spread across the Congo lands, importing and exporting goods and people across the region. Of interesting note is apparently Jews from Sao Tome found their way to Loango and established a small community there in the 18th century. French Congo. Loango and Kokongo maintained their advantageous positions as middlemen for Europeans, while Anziku stayed fairly quiet in their plateau. But the 19th century saw that splendid isolation end with the scramble for Africa. Already by 1841, the French established a protectorate on the Gulf of Guinea, centered along the Ogowe River, as a base to combat the slave trade. Slavery as a formal institution was on its way out in the Western world. 1849, the city of Libreville was founded for these freed slaves. This cut into the profits of Loango and Kokongo, but what could they do? Pierre Savognon de Brazza was an Italian explorer who served under the French. Beginning as an anti-slaver, he developed a keen interest in Africa. Already having explored the Ogowe, in 1879 he ventured overland towards the Congo River. The French were wary of King Leopold II of Belgium's Congo Society, and wanted a piece of the Congo pie before it was too late. De Brazza delivered in 1880. King Ilo Makoko of Anziku agreed to become a French protectorate. De Brazza also founded a settlement just downriver of the Congo River's Malebo Pool, to be called Brazzaville after him, opposite the river from Leopoldville, founded the next year. De Brazza had managed to trudge a path for France to the Congo by going around Portuguese Angola, something they had tried to prevent. 1882, Anziku was formally annexed into the new colony of the Congo. This was followed in 1883 by the conquest of Loango, connecting French Congo to the sea. 1885, the intensifying European conquest of Africa was managed by the Berlin Conference, mainly to ensure Portugal wasn't drowned out and Congo went to King Leopold. Portugal gained Ungoyo, while Leopold got his Congo Free State over the vast interior. France, however, was the only other power with any significant presence in the basin, and so got to keep their side. A border was agreed. Along the Chilwango River, the boundary continued east along the watershed between the Nyari and Congo, thence south along ridges to the Congo River itself, upwards to the Ubangi River, until about the point where rapids made further travel difficult. France was also given the go-ahead to annex Kokongo. So now we have a French Congo, a Portuguese Congo, and a Congo Free State, all distinct from the Kingdom of Congo, vassal to Portugal. 1886, Portugal asked France to support its claim to Zambezia. In exchange, the boundary between French and Portuguese Congo was set. From the coast, about halfway between Lakes Masabi and Cayo, a line went northeast to the watershed divide of the Chilwango and Lomi rivers. Along it until the Mayombe Mountains, southeast joined the border with the Free State. That same year, France merged Congo with its colony in the Gulf of Guinea into the colony of Gabon and Congo. France was not content with its piece of the Congo basin and kept going up the Ubangi. The French Free Congo border was amended in 1887, followed by the founding of Bangui in 1889. 1891, the Upper Ubangi was annexed, though France and the Free State still had some matters to discuss about that. De Brazza was named governor of the colony in 1886. He was a pacifist and did his best to look out for the natives, the people who actually lived in his colony. Well, the French government was better served by doling out land concessions to French companies, like in the Free State, to develop its resources. Some 40 companies were given huge swaths of land, and economic activity turned predatory. Territories were stripped bare of resources. Most upsettingly, herds of elephants were exterminated for their ivory. Just like in the Free State, natives were essentially enslaved to harvest these resources. The name of the game was to extract goods and ship them out as cheaply as possible. To the French, money and supplies were a premium. Native lives were not. Thousands died building a railroad from Brazzaville to Pointe-Noire to ship out all their inventory. De Brazza fought the companies and the French government as much as he could, until finally he was dismissed in 1897. Appalled by the atrocities he witnessed, he later published a report on them, only for it to be buried by French authorities. The practices continued, even while the world's attention focused on Leopold's Free State for the same thing. In 1903, the French territories in the Ubangi and Shari river basins were detached as the colony of Ubangi-Shari. The boundary between the two was vague, about the watershed of the Lobaye and Mumpoko rivers. 1904, the capital was moved from Libreville to Brazzaville, in preparation for the 1906 separation of Gabon and Congo, becoming Middle Congo, maybe to help distinguish it from the two other Congo colonies. The border between Congo and Gabon starts just southeast of the Bagno Lagoon, northeast to the Mayombe Mountains, then along the watershed divide between the Kwilu and Nyanga rivers, north to the Ikondu Mountains, northwest to the Nyanga River, up a ways, then along some ridges to a river I couldn't find the name of, until it empties into the Nguni. The border then follows that river up to about the 2nd degree south latitude, east to rejoin the Nyanga River. From there it goes up, and then along the watershed between the Ogowe and Nyari, then Congo, though it cuts across the high waters of the Ogowe. When the divide reaches the Joie River, it follows it down, meets the Ivindo River, and goes up to the border with German Cameroon. France separated its one Central African colony into 3, probably to make it easier to administer. The main mode of travel here was by boat, and having a colony each centered on the Ogowe, Congo, and Upper Ubangi rivers made the process easier. The Germans had established their own colony in Cameroon, and in 1908 they and the French hashed out the border. Down the Sanga River it went up the Ngoko River to about the 2nd degree north latitude, due west to the Ivindo River. French Equatorial Africa. In 1910, to consolidate their rule, France federated their colonies of Middle Congo, Gabon, and Ubangi-Shari, Chad, into Equatorial Africa, ruled by a governor-general from Brazzaville, while Middle Congo itself was headed from Pointe-Noire. The 1911 Agadir crisis in Morocco, which we won't get into right now, was resolved partly by France ceding a portion of Equatorial Africa to Germany. The country north of the Joie River, east of the Likwala River, and west of another Likwala River, the Likwala Oeb, became New Cameroon, allowing the Germans a route to the Congo along the Sanga. Germany got to enjoy it for all of 5 years, when in 1916 the Entente invaded Cameroon. By the 1919 Treaty of Versailles, France reacquired New Cameroon for Equatorial Africa. The next year, Chad and Ubangi-Shari were separated, bringing the constituents of Equatorial Africa to 4. New French Cameroon was a League of Nations mandate and was kept separate. Ubangi-Shari was enlarged with the Lobaye Valley in 1929. It probably made better use of it, considering it was separated from the rest of Middle Congo by swamp jungle. So, it turns out the vicious practices of the Congo concession companies weren't sustainable, and they ended up going bankrupt by the 1930s. The French terror in the Congo was over, if only because those responsible found it no longer worth their effort. Federation in Equatorial Africa did benefit Middle Congo as a center of colonial administration in the region. This, however, required a lot of money and labor, sourced by the other colonies, and resulted in Brazzaville becoming endowed with schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and economic growth, at the expense of the other 3. At the very least, Ubangi-Shari expanded into the Kade and Mambere valleys just north of Nola in 1937. When France fell to Germany in World War II, the Governor-General of Equatorial Africa was Félix Éboué, a French Guianan and first black man to hold a high colonial post in France. He opposed the Vichy regime in France and sided with Charles de Gaulle's Free French government. A friendly Equatorial Africa proved crucial for Allied operations in Africa, for manpower and bases. After the war, with France devastated, running an empire became a great burden. The rallying cry of the war had been freedom and democracy, and naturally many colonial subjects began asking where theirs was. In 1946, a new constitution established the Fourth French Republic, and France's colonies graduated to territories with representation in the National Assembly. About this time, the final border between Middle Congo and Ubangi-Shari was drawn, along the divide between the Lobaye and Ibenga rivers, towards that between the Ubangi and Sanga rivers until it lines southwest to just upriver from Bomassa. By involving its colonies in its political process and granting them citizenship, France hoped to preserve its empire as the French Union and curb rising African nationalism. Wars in Algeria and Indochina, however, proved this would be a losing battle. The 1958 de Gaulle coup created the Fifth Republic and the French Community, and the colonies were allowed to decide how they wanted to proceed. Most of Africa wished to become autonomous republics within the community as a prelude to independence. The Federation of Equatorial Africa was dissolved, and Middle Congo became La République du Congo, the Republic of the Congo, capitaled back at Brazzaville. Republic of the Congo. The French and the Catholic Church preferred the moderate Fulbert Youlou, who became prime minister. Politics were rocky at the start, quickly dividing along ethnic lines, the Lari Congo, the Vili, and the Mboshi. Nonetheless, Youlou was able to depend on oil reserves, recently discovered off the coast and developed by French investors. August 1960, Congo became independent from France, 2 months after the former Belgian Congo, also the Republic of the Congo, had. The threat of the nationalist and communist radicals prompted Youlou to declare one-party rule in 1963. He overplayed his hand, and France refused to help as a military coup deposed him. Alphonse Massamba Deba became president, beginning a program of nationalization and cozying up with the USSR and Red China. Things were looking up for Congo, with investment in education and healthcare, but a falling out with the military got Massamba overthrown in 1968, and Marion Ngouabe assumed power. People's Republic of the Congo. In 1969, Ngouabe established a one-party Marxist-Leninist socialist republic under the Congolese Party of Labor, La République Populaire du Congo, the People's Republic of the Congo. In 1971, neighboring Congo Kinshasa was renamed Zaire by its president Mobutu, helping with the confusion between the two. 1977, Ngouabe was assassinated. Anti-communist reactionaries were blamed. Thereafter, power shifted to the party, as they soon deposed Ngouabe's replacement. Denis Sassou Nguesso became president. The end of the Cold War meant support from the Soviets would come to an end, and a communist state wouldn't fly in the New World. So, the Congolese Party of Labor had to adapt and moderate its views. Sassou fulfilled his promise to transition to a multi-party liberal republic in 1992, returning to the Republic of the Congo. Yeah, I just said the name of the country. Sassou lost election to Pascal Lissouba, but he caused turmoil by dissolving the National Assembly and sparking unrest throughout the country. This was compounded by Congo's bloated public service sector, a legacy of colonialism. A disproportionate amount of the population was employed in the civil service, and to secure foreign financial support, pressure was placed to shrink that number. As with all austerity reforms, people lost their jobs, causing unemployment and frustration. Lissouba also antagonized French oil barons by courting American ones. It therefore came as no surprise that the French supported Sassou's faction when civil war erupted not once, but twice, starting in 1993, ending in 1994, then resuming in 1997. Sassou retook the presidency, while Lissouba fled into exile. When fighting stopped in 1999, thousands had died, millions more displaced, and Brazzaville was in ruins. Thankfully, this Congo Civil War wasn't as destructive as that in neighboring Zaire, now renamed back to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Honestly, someone needs to do something about those names. Sassou's subsequent regime has been plagued with corruption and fraud, as he has won re-election 4 times, each with an improbable amount of the vote. Sazu has been in charge for over 40 years, and since he plays ball with the European oil companies, this isn't likely to change until he dies. He's in his 80s. Congo floats its government with oil revenues, which constitute the overwhelming majority of its economy, followed by copper. Other sectors are neglected, despite large mineral reserves, and the majority of its people deal with poverty. Despite this, Congo is more urbanized than most African countries. Compared to Congo Kinshasa, Congo-Brazzaville's population is much smaller, about 6 million compared to over 100 million. And most of Congo is sparsely populated, the majority concentrated in Brazzaville, Boîte Noire, and the railway between. Congo often lives in the shadow of the DRC, but I'm glad we got to give it its time in the sun. Next time, we'll go west to Gabon. See you there.